Guys, our friends at Waterboy are standing up to dehydration with their scientifically formulated hydration powder designed to level up your athletic and weekend recovery. If you like to drink, Waterboy can help cut your hangovers in half with ingredients designed to help with nausea, anxiety, and even fatigue. There are other hydration packets on the market, but with zero sugar and over 3 times the electrolytes of Liquid IV, dehydration stands no chance. For a limited time, our listeners are going to get 15% off your entire order. Just use the code Chael at waterboy.com. The best part is it also tastes great. After a tough workout, their popular flavors like strawberry lemonade, lemon lime, and blue raspberry are super refreshing. Waterboy is gluten-free, caffeine-free, dairy-free, vegan, and made right here in America. With over 9 times the electrolytes, as a Gatorade, you gotta ditch the sugar and switch to Waterboy. Hundreds of thousands of people already trust Waterboy as their muscle recovery and hangover cure. For a limited time, get an exclusive 15% off discount when you use the code Chael at waterboy.com or just click on the link below. I was the first to share with you guys that a backup fighter is desperately needed for Paulo Costa and Khamzat Chimaev. And I left it at that. I've never told you why or where that came from. I did share with you, neither one of those guys wanted to do that fight, but I left it at that. Okay, turns out that comes to fruition. And Daniel Cormier done an interesting piece. Now, I'm going back in time, right? I'm giving you guys a timeline. This is where I started, right? The fight gets announced. I'm the one that announces the fight on Ariel's show. A couple months later, I come out and say, hey, there's trouble in paradise here. You better get a backup fighter. Okay, great. Fight gets called off. Need a backup fighter. Daniel Cormier came out. So this was just last week. And he said, look, I got some inside information, some stuff I'm hearing. Not been given authority to reveal it, but if this is accurate, your jaws will hit the floor, which means you're going to go, oh, wow. And the only problem with that statement is it was so well known that Kamar Usman was the leading suspect. Like if you were to be told that Kamar Usman was going to do the fight, and maybe it's a little different for me. And one thing when I laid out that timeline, I also did a piece and said Kamar Usman needs to be the guy. That's the only guy that can fill in. But it was a little bit interesting when Daniel came out and said your jaw's going to hit the floor, because Daniel didn't show a support back when Kamar Usman was begging for the fight and campaigning and lobbying for the fight. I just assumed that Daniel had information, but it could have been Kamara. It could have been Kamar Usman who tried to get the fight and got passed over for Paulo Costa because he couldn't fit the litmus test that Daniel laid out, which is a jaw hit the floor. This is my guess, right? I don't know. Daniel did a good job of keeping us curious. And I thought, well, it's got to be Strickland. Our jaws are going to hit the floor. It has to be Strickland. There's not very many likely suspects. Robert Whittaker would be a ton of fun. Driguez Duplessis would be a ton of fun, but that's a guy that wouldn't go fight on 2 months' notice. We're not going to get him to fight on 2 weeks' notice. So you're trying to just do the math a little bit. Who could it possibly be? So it comes out that it's, sure enough, it's Kamar Usman. And Bo Nickal had come out and said, I was really disappointed. The UFC didn't call me. They didn't offer me the Chimaev fight. And so I was thinking about that in the vein of what Daniel said, which is jaw hit the floor moment. And I think that Bo would have satisfied that. Bo had never crossed my mind. Strickland crossed my mind. World title fight. DDP, Whittaker, they were dismissed. Jared Cantor has spoken that he will do it. But again, that's just, right, there's just a miss there. There's a miss. Something's amiss. So for Daniel to say that we would be in awe, it had to be somebody pretty impressive. So I thought it would be down to Strickland and or Adesanya to fit the bill that Daniel said. Now, Kamar Usman, that was my choice. I came out and lobbied for Kamar Usman, so I don't mean that I have any problem with that. I'm saying I get confronted with Daniel saying it's going to be a jaw on the floor moment. Well, a jaw on the floor moment has to be something we haven't yet considered, at least, I think. So that is where I thought, well, maybe Strickland. And Izzy's just crazy enough, it could be. Comes out that it was Kamar Usman. Okay, great. So then Bo makes the statement that he was disappointed. And the massive difference there is Bo didn't lobby for it. And But this needs to be a lesson. This needs to be a moment where Bo gets cold water splashed in his face. Bo Nickal versus Chimaev is a fight that is going to be almost impossible to make right now. With the pieces that you're giving, with the trajectory of Chimaev, who is being groomed and raised to go in and compete for a championship, and many, including in leadership positions at the organization, believe he's going to become the champion and run with that for quite a while. They believe that. So Bo, as great as he is, but unranked, it's going to be nearly impossible to bring those pieces together, but they could have done it 1 week ago for sure. And that was almost the only scenario that is any likelihood of ever getting those guys together. As unlikely it is that those guys are going to fight because of the rankings, right? Just because of where they're at. Everything else matches up. Their records are pretty close. Their losses are exactly identical. Their ages are pretty close. They might be the exact same. Now that I say that, they both might be 27 years old. My point is this. If you can't get them together now, and you can't, you're not going to get them together if Chimaev wins this fight and becomes the number one contender. You're not going to be jonesing to get it together if Chimaev loses this fight. If Chimaev goes on and becomes world champion, right? I mean, you just see how it gets harder and harder and harder, not easier, but right now was the time. And if Bo really does feel that way, he needs to wake up and look around and go, Bo, you're not ever going to get called to do something. That is not how it works. You've got to be the one to do it. And you can look at all the things that Kamar Usman did, which got himself in the position to take the fight. That would have been incredible. Bo Nickal versus Chimaev, that really would have been incredible for us hardcore fans specifically. I see no reason to keep guys apart. And there's people that will disagree with me, but I don't have, over the course of history, any empirical evidence that building a guy actually works, as opposed to putting on the fights that you can put on when you can put them on. But there is a meaningful difference. Bo did not position himself for this. From Bo's last fight, where I seem to remember it was the most lopsided odds in the history of the organization. He was like a plus 2,400. It was something silly like this. But from that last fight, I only remember one thing that he said. He said he was going to go hunting. He didn't give us any help. And I can juxtapose that with what Kamar Usman did, where he let everybody know he wants to fight Chimaev. He went out to the UFC. He sat, he lobbied, he called them all, he texted them all. And he made sure that that story of those efforts got out. I see other guys going down to the Apex and they're filming themselves. I see other guys going to UFC headquarters and they're filming themselves. They're putting it out on social media. I'm just sharing with you, there was one guy that lobbied for it and there one guy that didn't. I can't tell you that I don't love the idea of Bo versus Chimaev in this atmosphere on extremely short notice. Like, the path for Kamar Usman is an interesting one. This is definitely a potential retirement match, it would seem. It would seem. We have had greats before that start to work their way down the card and they stick around until every drop is squeezed out. We do have those. My favorite fighter, Frankie Edgar, would fit that bill. But we have other guys that go, hey, as soon as I can't be champion, I'll get my coat, I'll put my jacket on, and I'll see y'all at the next one. So at 170 pounds, there's really not a path for Kamar Usman. There's not a likely one. And at 185 pounds, he just found it. Apparently, if he wins his next two fights, he'll be the champion of the world. Apparently, he is now in a number one contenders match, which would draw him into Sean Strickland, who he has beaten in the past. I mean, it's a really interesting spot. But meanwhile, you've got the other side of the coin, which is if he doesn't win at 185, there is not another path at 185. Not for a 36-year-old who doesn't have a history in the division. And then to even take a short-minute replacement fight at 170 when you're given an opportunity like this, right? I mean, those are lightning in a bottle. They just don't come very often. It's not a good shot that'll present itself again. So what does he do? Would he retire after that? I don't know. I'm just sharing for you. There has to be something very meaningful there. I think there is something meaningful. I think a number one contendership is very, very real. But as Bo makes that comment, he talks about disappointed, right? If he's just out doing interviews and saying things, no problem. But if he really meant that, if he felt something, say, gosh, I feel like I got overlooked. Hey, what do I have to do around here? Well, there's an answer. There's an answer. There's what you did not do, and did not get the opportunity. There's the guy that did do something and did get the opportunity. And that was just lobbying. It was real simple. It's not a trick question here. It was real simple, real direct. And I feel as though Bo could still insert himself. He could still get involved. I mean, I know when I look at the rankings and I look at DDP, it's very powerful to explain. They didn't go to the number one contender. Why? The number one contender already turned down a world title fight. Now you're telling me the number one contender is turning down a number one contender. Is there anything your number one contender is willing to do? Right? I mean, that's going to get... I insulted Dricus and got all sorts of media by telling you that he backed down from Adesanya in an interview, which 100% happened. But I'm sharing for you, why would Nickal not start doing that? Why is he not going after Duplessis? Why does he not go after anybody? Can't be surprised you didn't get something if you didn't go for it. What else in life did you ever get that you didn't try to get? Well, back the time you were a little kid, what did your father buy you or get you from the store that you didn't ask him for? Can't be surprised or disappointed you didn't get a fight that you didn't try to get when another guy did try to get it. This isn't complicated. The rules of the octagon are no different than the rules of your house or of the playground or anything else you did. If you want something, let people know you want it. Try to get it. Ask for it.